Hello, everyone. I'd like to get the session started. Thank you for joining in on this live webinar on partnership design. And in this webinar, I'll be focusing specifically on handing out some practical tips for people who intend to work with partnership design, but are still trying to figure out how to get started and how to engage with people. So the webinar will take about an hour, and I'll spend the first 30 minutes or so explaining a bit about the partnership design process and the contexts in which I've applied it and some of the lessons I've learned. During the presentation, I invite you to use the chat box on the right, where you can enter some of your questions and comments. After the presentation of 30 minutes, I'll take about another 30 minutes to go through some of the questions you have to hand out some practical insights on specific things you would need to know in addition to like the general presentation I'm giving you. Do note that this session will be recorded, so I'll upload it on YouTube and share it at least with the group that's participating now, but also the wider community who's interested in partnership design. So feel free to look back once the recording's up there, and if you have any questions after, let me know. So my name is Bart Dorneweert. I'm inventor of the Partnership Canvas and Partnership Design. I'm partner at Source Institute, which promotes peer learning and experiential entrepreneurship education, both for universities and for-profit businesses. So without further ado, I'd like to get started with the session. So in my experiences, partnerships are hard because they aren't defined very well, and they're always like in a fluid state. So they're very hard to grasp and hard to manage, and there's a lot of variables and a lot of people involved. And that puts a risk to developing business and achieving innovation within businesses. I like this quote by Professor Henry Chesbrough from Berkeley University, who describes very well what the problem is, in that in his view, there are few companies that know what their own business is about, let alone that they would know what their external relation or their partner's business would be about. And that's a pretty sort of toxic mix for coming to a joint understanding and actually shaping and executing on a partnership. And it's usually in this type of communication problems that partnerships tend to fail, to bog down. There's a really nice methodology available out there which helps people to better communicate about business and business strategy. It's called business model generation. And the centerpiece of business model generation is a tool called the Business Model Canvas, which you might be familiar with. And the Business Model Canvas consists of 9 elementary building blocks by which you can describe any organization and how it creates, captures, and delivers value to customers, starting with a value proposition as present in the middle. The truck represents the channels through which the product or service is shipped to customers, and the customer is on the right, the recipient or the beneficiary of the value proposition. Of course, customers have to pay for a product, which is the bottom right box, and the business also has to maintain a customer relationship with customers, which is the heart box on the top. That's sort of the right hand of the business model canvas. It's like the interface between the business and the customer. It's all the touch points that the customer sees, but there's also a back end to the business model canvas. And in the back end, you look at your key activities, the essential activities you need to perform to create, capture, and deliver value to your customers. Then there's the key resources. That's the guy with the hammer. And lastly, on the left is the key partners building block. And interestingly, this is a very key tool to come to some kind of first realization of what partners could potentially, what role partners could potentially play within the context of your business. But through my experience of applying and the business model canvas in workshops and to get people to think strategically about their partnerships, I've encountered a problem. And that's this phenomenon that I see that people use a lot of, or think they work together with a lot of partners within their business. And if you examine them closely and inquire about what role these partners play, particularly in their business, and especially if you ask them, like, what value do they provide in return for utilizing this partner, then it appears that a lot of organizations that are deemed to be partners are actually in reality not partners. So you see that this list really shrinks down. And that's gotten me thinking as to, would it help if there would be some kind of a support tool that prompts some key questions to let people have a very focused discussion on partnerships and how to design partnerships and how they actually work, which would work in addition to the business model canvas, which is a really essential and really great tool to describe core strategy. So the question is, like, is there a tool, is there a framework available that would help discuss and frame discussions about partnerships as effectively as the business model canvas would? And in essence, this tool would have to cover the perspective from two sides, which is our own business and their business, as in the partner's business, because you're not only looking for a way to create value for your business, at the same time, in a partnership, you have to create value for one of your partners. So in definition, what you're looking for is, in terms of describing partnerships, is figuring out a way how to make two business models create value in an interdependent way. That's sort of the definition I always use when I'm discussing about partnerships and trying to sift out what is a partnership and what is not a partnership. And navigating the space between two businesses is a complex and messy process without structural tools like the business model canvas. There are a lot of people involved from a lot of different departments within organizations who all have different perspectives and different visions on what the partnership should bring to the business. And to facilitate this conversation, I've developed a specific tool, a structure, which helps people to come to an alignment to what elements should we be talking about when we're discussing a partnership and which ones not, which will hopefully, which in practice has seen to be generating lots of benefits to structuring the discussion, also accelerating decision-making for people involved with building partnerships. And this structure is what I call the partnership canvas, and it's an add-on tool to the business model canvas specifically designed to discuss and implement partnerships. And I'll take you through the building blocks of the partnership canvas one by one. Now, the first building block, and this is a key building block, relates to the desired assets that you as a business are looking for. And desired assets relate to certain qualities of other businesses that you know you don't have and that you're looking for in a partner to somehow get access to and utilize within the context of your own business. And this could be particular skills, or it could be resources, or it could be an infrastructure that your partner has. And it could also be more intangible things like the networks they have access to, or a brand and reputation they have in the market. So that's the building block desired assets relating to what you're searching for in a partner. And if you know what you're searching for, then you also have to add something to the game, which is your offer to that partner. And with the offer, you're looking for something that complements or enhances the assets, the desired assets that you're looking for in a partner. So with these two building blocks, in essence, what you're doing is looking for synergy, because the assets that you want from a partner and your offer have to match and have to complement and enhance each other. And this is the part of the structure of the tool where you can discuss, is there a potential synergy between our two businesses? Synergy alone is not enough for partnering, because you also have to figure out a way how to provide mutual access to these values, right? The fact that a partner would have certain resources doesn't mean that you would gain access to those resources in the way you think that you would need access to them, and vice versa. So with this building block in the middle, the transfer activity, you're looking for a way how to bring these two assets, these two elements of value together in some form of collaboration and value exchange. And this is what I call the partnership foundation. It's like the value exchange engine between partners, where you have value from both entering the equation and you've defined a way to collaborate. But you're not done yet, because you also have to look at what type of output the partnership would generate. And that's what the last building block is for, the building block of created value. And what you're looking for in created value is to create something from the partnership, and that's the result you want to bring back to your business, to your business model, and operationalize that there and bring it to value. So in short, this is the partnership canvas, and iterating on the content of the building blocks with the desired assets. You describe what are you looking for in a partner. With the value offer, you're looking at your matching offer that would support and create synergy with what you're looking for in a partner. The transfer activity asks questions about how you will bring these values together, and your created value looks for the outputs you're looking for to operationalize back in your business model and achieve that innovation with. So when you have the business model and the partnership canvases laid out, you're essentially dealing with two different tools. And in this next bit, I'll just explain how these tools interact with each other exactly. And the interaction becomes apparent when you tilt the partnership canvas a bit to the right, bringing the building block of created value and value offer in connection with the business model on the right, which we should take in this case as being for our business. And by tilting it to the right, you see the connections with created value and your business, but on the left-hand side, you see the connection between the desired assets from your partner and your partner's business model. And the nice thing about this setup is that you see that the business model and the partnership canvas together combined create like a shape of a little arrow, which emphasizes that you're reasoning on a partnership from our perspective, from the business model on the right to the left. So this is our perspective on a partnership. Now, how does it work? We're looking at that. You have one perspective, but we also have to look at the problem of partnering from the other perspective. And that's where the partnership canvas comes into. You flip the tool and you see that the logic also applies from the business to the left to the right. So essentially you can have a setup where you have two partnering businesses or two teams which would work on defining a partnership using the same structure and the same language. And that becomes very interesting, because when people use the same framework and start using the same language to describe the phenomenon, you can start a process with the partnership canvas to bring perspectives of the teams working on the partnership together. And the partnership canvas facilitates the integration and alignment of these perspectives when you see that the partnership foundations can come together and can be compared. And ideally, if you're in alignment with your partners, you're able to mirror these building blocks. So what does it mean? Like the desired assets that you would want from a partner, that would actually have to match with the value offer of your partner to you, right? Are those the same things? And vice versa, what you think that could be of value to offer to your partner, you have to find out whether your partner would desire those values in you. And lastly, you have to get an accord on the transfer activity, the basis by which you'd collaborate. And once you've defined this and unified the partnership foundation, then you can think about created value and how that created value would port back to each partner's business model and be operationalized. And by bringing the conversation to this level and this overview, you'll see what and how the partnership would work for you and would benefit to you, but also at the same time would benefit and work for your partner. Because that's the main risk in one of the main risks in partnerships is that if it works for me, then it'll also work for a partner. And that's a very dangerous assumption. You have to also trace and understand under what conditions the partnership would work for your partner and how you could help in some way to get them to achieve their goals. So in this overview, you'll get both perspectives, and you'll see from both perspectives like how the partnership will work and benefit for both. And it's a very nice and interactive exercise where you can get people to work separately on designing firstly like what their perspectives of the partnership would be, and at a certain point bring the process together and create that that unified understanding of the partnership and the potential for innovation that could come through the partnerships through both businesses, and get people to take next steps in terms of experimenting with different forms and how to operationalize it, and eventually come to a plan together on how to roll out the collaboration. I'd like to, this is sort of the technical process I've explained so far, and I'd like to take you through some of the steps in a general overview of how I see partnership design and how I use partnership design within the context of innovating a business model for an organization. And I consider partnership to be one of the routes to business model innovation, right? Because there's also the routes that you're able to achieve the innovation by yourself. But you have to, at a certain point within the process of business model innovation, come to a realization that, hey, a partnership might be an option to get there faster, quicker, or with less expenditure of time or resources. And that's what I like to take the process through of when partnership would come in, what the business model innovation process looks like in general, and when partnership would come into the discussion. So business model innovation, it tends to start with an investment, an assessment. There are generally people would come up to me and ask like, hey, I want a new business model. And their assumption is that it's just a question of taking the business model canvas and sort of sketching out some new idea they have, and then that would be like their plan to go. But you always have to take people back a step, and you have to look at like, what type of environment are you operating in? Because the business model never operates in isolation. And there are always like political, economic, technological, and competitive factors, or grave uncertainties, trends, etc., that interact with the business model and that cause certain constraints for business models to become operationalized, or that might provide the opportunities. Another element you have to examine is that of vision, because a vision is a direction in which a company or organization would like to bring its business model, and you have to reflect on whether that vision that people have and the business model that currently operates, whether they are in alignment or not. And when you bring those factors in the environment and the factors in the vision and reflect on the business model, you'll be able to perform a sort of a SWOT analysis to analyze like, where are the opportunities for change, or where are the problems within our existing business model that would cause us to change. So this, in the assessment phase, you get some idea of like the sense of urgency or the sense of opportunity you have for achieving change. And once you've defined that, then actually setting in change becomes easier, because you have a very convincing story on why you should change, and you also have some direction in which you want to go. So after the assessment comes a phase where you ideate, and in the ideation phase you look at different options, or you look at the opportunity for creating different options to actually set up new business models. So there will be a phase where you have a brainstorm and you think of different products or services you could provide, and then think about how you would put those products and services into the market with a tool called the Business Model Canvas. So you can use the Business Model Canvas to capture these sort of loose ideas and give them some structure and like a solid story of how you think that would turn into a business. Now, it's at this point that partnerships come into the discussion as a first step, because in this phase, you also need to evaluate, like, if we have a really good idea and a business model that looks promising, can we actually do that by ourselves, or are we left, or do we need to look for a collaboration or a partner to team up with, and we can make it work faster and better. So this is where the option of designing a partnership would come in as a way to operationalize it. And what happens here is that once you've defined, like, that you need to work with a partner because that'll probably work out better, you need to start the process over again, but then taking into account the perspective of the partner in assessment, because your partner also has a business running in a specific environment, and they also have a vision where they want to bring that business. Plus, you need to perform a SWOT together to really understand where the problems and opportunities are within that business. So after identifying that you need a partner, and you maybe made a short list of potential partners, you need to do that examination, that assessment again, but then from their end as well, to understand, like, where they want to bring their business. But if you've brought that in alignment with a partner, and you have this joint understanding of a model of how the both businesses could benefit from a partnership, that's where you move into a validation phase, right? And you have in the validation phase, you can go at it alone on the left, but if you work in a partnership, then there are certain questions or certain hypotheses that you need to test about your partnership to experiment whether in reality your partnership will run as you think it will run on paper, and also bring the benefits that you would expect it to bring. So this is an experimental phase where you work a bit under the radar to suss out these details, to see if the partnership will play out the way you think it will play out. And this is where you learn about the structural model that you will eventually be able to capture in an implementable plan, and that you can direct at a very specific target. And the partnership design process is sort of this blue area on the right. Right, so everything outside of the blue area is like the standard business model innovation process where you go at it alone, but partnership design is like a route, another option that fits in addition to the existing business model innovation process. So that's sort of an introduction to a very sort of global overview of how a design process or a strategy design process would look like. But a strategy design session is pretty heavy, and it's one of the ways of getting people familiar and working with the concept of partnerships and discovering what partnerships could mean. In this section, I just want to briefly take you through some other options that I've developed and have had experience with, to show you that there are also other more lighter ways how to get people started with thinking about what partnerships could mean for them, which would hopefully eventually lead to a strategy design process. But you can take people through the learning curve and starting at a lower point. And I'll show you in this overview how to do that. So there are several options for introducing partnership design to people. And I think the options you choose, you should design around the purpose by which you want to introduce the topic of partnerships to people. Like strategies design, as I talked about just now, is like one purpose, the bigger purpose, right? So you can implement it in actually designing a strategy with two partners, but you can also take it at a sort of more abstract level in working with cases and showing people how to design partnerships. But there could also be a lower level purpose where the objective of your workshop or the interaction with people you want to make is connecting people in real time, right? Are there people in a certain crowd you can bring together to start discussions on partnerships with, right? And the partnership canvas can provide a framework for starting that discussion. And lastly, there's the lowest level of contextualization that you work with, which is giving people like a first inspiration of what the potential, what the meaning of partnerships could bring to their business. And each of these purposes has a sort of a different focus in terms of tools and processes, and will have a different interaction between people. So starting on the top with a strategy design process, your focus is on that whole process and taking the discussion through that whole process and coming in the end to some kind of an implementation plan. And interaction, the type of interaction you will have in that process is that you'll see, you have to work with two teams, which could be one team from each business that wants to partner, but it could also be a simulation within one of the organization where people want to try and test what a discussion with a partner could potentially look like, to get like the strategic perspective, to prepare themselves before they actually go into the real life conversations with the partners. But in this section, you would need like a setup where at least you would have pairs or multiples of pairs of people working in teams and actually being able to take on the role of each partner in the equation. Then at the next level comes the opportunity when you're looking for connecting people and getting people introduced to each other and discussing about partnerships. The focus there could just be on the partnership canvas tool. So you don't need to take into account the whole business model innovation process, but when you're trying to connect people and start discussions about partnerships, and the partnership canvas on itself provide a nice entry point for that discussion. There are two kind of setups in which you can use that. One setup is the one-to-many setting. And the one-to-many setting, what I do there is that I would facilitate the person standing on stage, would be a problem owner, a person that wants to partner, and help them structure their partnership in front of the audience. And then once that person is able to present that partnership in the form of a partnership canvas, then the audience can follow the reasoning, and they can reach out and contact that person like during the break or after, and go further in depth on discussing how a collaboration could take place. So it's kind of like a way how to pitch and present a partnership or a request for a partnership or a specific type of partner. There's also a many-to-many setting where you'd get whole groups of people to work on their ideas for partnership, and you do like a system of speed dating where you want to see if people are able to make a match on these partnership foundations. You put that under a bit of time pressure because there will be people who will make an instant fit in terms of partnering, but there will also be mismatches in that sense. But it's a nice way to sort of introduce a very informal way of connecting people and getting introduced and hopefully coming to some kind of a partnership that you can source from that crowd. The last level of introducing partnerships relates to inspiring or some basic education on what partnerships are about in the first place. And again, the focus there is on the partnership canvas, but then it's more on the building blocks and what the building blocks represent and how they connect together to get some understanding of how you define the basic logic of a partnership. And for that, you would have some kind of gaming interaction. A game that I use, usually in the form of a sort of a rapid exercise, is to get people to take on different roles, which are very generalistic, and get them to think about their perspective and then see if they can come to a match. For instance, you could divide up teams into teams of rich guys and teams of poor guys, and ask them to figure out how they could collaborate together and not have the rich guy give money to the poor guy, but use a partnership to bring something of benefit for both. You could apply the same to the situation of a chicken and an egg, right? Very general in purpose, but how could a chicken and an egg collaborate in the form of a partnership and generate a new form of value for each? And lastly, I would take a sort of a case of two businesses partnering that are well known, everybody knows, and have people think about like what in a very quick way of what that collaboration would look like without going into too much analytics and details, but having some kind of an intuitive sense of why two companies like Apple and IBM, like how they could be collaborating together. So what you have here basically is like three options for starting discussions on workshops. And it takes the options from the top, which are highly contextualized, and you'll need to invest quite a lot into preparation and getting people aligned and moving them through the process, to the lowest form of contextualization, where it's just about introducing the tool and getting people started and aware of what it could bring to a discussion on partnerships, which is on the lower end, to inspire and educate people. In this section, I'd just like to share some insights on the types of people I've worked with in partnership design and what I've seen as the benefits that they get out of applying the process. So one target group I work with are startups, and you notice on the left in the picture that there's a hoodie there, and there's a pair of flip-flops, which is sort of a caricature of a startup founder. And there are sort of two types of startup founders that benefit from the partnership design as a tool. One segment of users are like early stage startup entrepreneurs. And when they use the tool, they come to the realization that they're not quite there yet because they're still figuring out their business model. But going through the process of partnership design and understanding how it works will give them some idea of when they would be ready to do it. So they can already start strategically planning how to partner as early as possible. Now, for later stage partners, what they get out of it is that they are primed to use partnerships to find a systematic basis for growth, to get out of the situation where they're sort of haphazardly trying to tie up with big brands, but not having any idea of how that would bring structural growth to their businesses. So startup founders are one target group I've worked with and that can benefit from partnership design. There's another group of people in business development and partnerships for existing organizations. And what I hear from them is that the process helps them to sell the idea and the organizing of partnerships internally. Yeah, so there's I heard a quote from a business development person from Spotify some 3 weeks ago, who said that his effort in partnerships consists of 80% of selling the thing internally, and working and discussing with the partner is only 20% of his time. So having a tool and the process in place, like the partnership canvas, you will accelerate and can work with bigger groups and a variety of people within those groups to get alignment on what partnerships are about, and it makes for better communication. And also it could help in the second point, in creating joint communication with partners, because sometimes there's a miscommunication on the form in which a partnership should take place or its objective, and having alignment on a process and the different steps within the process and the communication framework that the partnership canvas provides, you will come more easily to a form of joint communication. The last group I work with is sort of akin to the business development group, but those are the guys who are without the ties. And what the benefit that they get from partnership design is that it allows them to build a story and find evidence for a systemic benefit that would come from their innovation teams, which could be internal people, but it could also be startups that they invite to work within the organization, to figure out like how the existing corporate core could benefit from this collaboration, because that's always where corporate innovation people have sort of the hardest sell, and trying to convince the existing organization to continue the program and to see the benefits that are coming out. And partnership design helps both the corporation to figure out how they can get benefits from the collaboration, and startups at the same time figure out how they could get benefits from accessing to certain resources within the existing company. That's sort of all I have to share for now in terms of content, and I'd like to flip the process by taking some of the questions if you have some. Let me just check. I have some questions on my list already, which I can go through, but just to refresh in your mind a bit about what type of questions you could ask. For instance, you could ask something about the process and how to take people through it and what type of concerns or you might be looking for a way how to get started. If you have any questions about that, I'll be happy to take those on. You might have some questions on like in what sort of form can I get going with a very practical workshop, you know, how would I set up the interaction, what type of goals would I attach to the workshop, etc. If you have any questions about that, please do ask. And lastly, if you're looking for specific use cases or user groups and how to convince and engage people within that, yeah, fire away. I have a list of questions here, which I'll go through now. There's a question from Anoop. Let me see. There are comments. The question here is, are you trying to create new value for the eventual customer? So it should be a win-win-win, where you're creating a win for the eventual customer. What do you think? I think that's exactly hits the nail on the head. The true north of a partnership is something that benefits the end customer. You're trying to augment the customer experience or add to the customer experience by including something valuable that your partner is really good in. And through the collaboration, you'll create a new value proposition or an extended customer experience, which would delight your customers. So definitely, I'd say that customers are the true north of your partnership. There's another question here from Anoop. Can you apply the partnership canvas to very large and complex strategic alliances, even from an R&D perspective? I think the partnership canvas can be used within complex settings because it forces you to differentiate between or define for each partner what they will bring to the table. I've worked in complex partnerships myself as a researcher in public-private partnerships. And what you see there is that it's unclear from an individual relation perspective what every person brings to the table. And what I see in strategic alliances, and particularly where there's a lot of partners involved, there's always like a lead partner that sort of orchestrates the network and takes the lead on forging the relationships. And for that particular organization, the partnership canvas is a really nice tool because it helps you define the relation with each type of relation you need within the partnership, and also helps you break the sequence down by which you should approach your partners. Like, who's the partner that you need to bring on first before you reach out to the second one, etc. What it also helps with is to define partnership relations on relation types, so you can classify the relationships you have within a partnership. An example of a company that has mastered this is Nespresso, where they've come up with a structural way of collaborating with machine manufacturers for their coffee concept. And they work together with each different machine manufacturer, but they work exactly in the same way. So they figure out a way how through, it's kind of an outsourcing collaboration, but it's more than that, how to structurally work in that way and benefit their business and make it run really well. So it helps decompose the complexity and bring focus and priorities to the different types of relations you have, to examine the portfolio of relations you have with different partners, and it helps to focus on the sequence by which you can bring in your partners. So I think we're definitely within a complex setting, the tool can be of use. You also asked, Anoop, another question about joint venture creation. The partnership canvas does not work for joint venture creation. The interesting thing is that it can help you define whether you would actually need a joint venture as an organizational form, and I'll explain that. The partnership canvas takes the premise of two businesses creating value interdependently, and it's designed around informal agreements of partnering. Of course, you can formalize whatever you think of in the partnership canvas in the contract, but the premise is an informal form of value creation where there's no money exchanged between partners, and the two businesses that are partnering remain independent. Now, the interesting thing is that would be like the optimal form for partnering, but it doesn't always apply because there's always intellectual property that might reside more within one partner than the other, or when intellectual property is very vague and hard to protect. That's when people start considering the option of joint ventures. But taking the informal route in the discussion, figuring out if you can design the collaboration within the context of the partnership canvas is a really interesting way to find out whether that's possible or not. And if it's not possible to organize it informally, then you can think of a way of how you can structure the collaboration in a joint venture setting. So you can use the partnership design process as a way of discovering whether you actually need to set up a joint venture or not. Anoop's asking a lot of questions. I'd be happy to take questions from the other attendees. If you have some, please drop them in the box. But for now, I'll continue with Anoop's questions. Is there not a step missing in that you have to go through a partner selection process before you find the right partner? That's very true. That you need to go through a process of defining and selecting a partner. In the partnership design process, where that comes in is after you've defined a potential way for collaboration. And let me just flip back to the business model innovation process overview. So when you're in ideation and you're sensing that you're not going to be able to go at it alone and are thinking of a partnership, by using the partnership canvas and specifically looking at the building block of the desired asset, you're trying to figure out a way of defining what you're missing and how you would use that resource with the desired asset building block on the left. And when you've defined what asset you're missing, that enables you to make a list of criteria of things that your partner would need to have, and it enables you to create that that short list of partners that you would need to approach and contact and discover whether there's actually a way of collaborating together. So the desired asset building block is a way to help in that partnership selection process, in the way I see it. There's another question about inspiring. You could also look at case studies of two companies from two completely different industries. That's exactly correct. When I'm doing my strategy design masterclasses, my partnership strategy design masterclasses, I incorporate exactly that. I look for interesting cases of companies that people sort of know, but don't know the details of, and especially when you have the combination of the company that prompts like curiosity, like, hey, what's going on there? How would they collaborate together? And I have several cases involved there that I use to to inspire people and also get them to think about what's possible and the way in which a partnership could help companies actually transverse like conventional industry boundaries and work together with companies that nobody thought they would have been able to work with before. But definitely case studies are a good way of getting people inspired and getting people to understand and work with the partnership design process and coming to business model innovation through partnerships. Okay. Are there any other questions from the group? I could also put you on mic if you want to ask me an open question or have something more complex to ask. If not, then I think I will close the webinar. And I would like to thank you very much for your participation and your interest. As I said, this webinar has been recorded, so I'll upload the video so that you can rewatch it. If you have any questions about the partnership canvas or the process or something that you might think of after the webinar that you would have wanted to ask now, then please do reach out to me. My email is on the bottom left of this slide, bart@Sourcelight Institute. I'm on Twitter as well, @BartRunnerit. And I also have a LinkedIn group called Partnership Design. So look that up on LinkedIn and become a member. And it's also a good venue to ask questions about partnership design. There are a lot of practitioners in that group. If you ask your questions there, I'll respond there, and it's a way of engaging with the community and maybe not only getting ideas from me, but also from the other really experienced people that are within that group that are able to help. So it's a new way of making new connections. That's it for this webinar. I'd like to thank you very much for your attention, and do reach out to me, and I hope to be in contact with you more about partnership design. So thank you very much, and have a nice weekend for now. Bye.